Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and this week I am joined by a new guest. If you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we have a very special guest on the podcast to talk all things leadership. He is the president of We Care Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Welcome to the podcast, Rusty Cochran.
Chad, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rusty, get us started off. Just give people a little bit of context. Why don't you give a little background on kind of your story into the trades, and then as well as kind of the company's story and where you guys are today.
All right. So I got into the trade. I was about 16 years old doing the summer job thing. My father worked for a company that was a residential new construction company and doing heating and air conditioning. And he would bring me on as a helper in the summertime. And then when I graduated high school, got to do that full time, dove right into it. Went to college, but not for really the education part of, general ed and all that. But I went into college for the heating and air conditioning refrigeration side of things. So it wasn't a trade school, it was a college, but really it was like a trade school at a college. So ended up doing that. And then, the school part really wasn't for me, some regrets later in life, but hey, here I am today, but oh well. So anyway, I am a learner. I keep on learning from it and growing, and whether it's books or podcasts or whatever it is, listening to others. So from that point, just started doing new construction, grew into in the HVAC world, and got into running my own jobs later, couple years into it as a helper, and then became a lead, and then became a superintendent at that company, and then became the general superintendent. And in the company, this was back in the 92 era when Blue Dot was buying up a lot of different companies. Lennox got into the game. Our company was bought by Lennox, and I forgot what year it was, but anyway, we were one of those companies. Wasn't really a great fit, in my opinion, just because we were doing new construction, and most of that business was service and replacement model. Whole lot didn't change there as far as that goes, but we ended up, where's it going and everything else. So I ended up getting my own license, actually partnered with two friends of mine, best friends I grew up with, from the long hair days, starting a rock band and all that stuff together in the garage to, opening up a heating and air conditioning company together. And it was a little bit different. We weren't going for we weren't doing business too smart. We were young, and, we bought lifted 4x4 trucks and, got the Nextel phones, and, we're ready to roll. But it was different because, you got to lift up these heavy air conditioners into the back of these lifted trucks. So we weren't the smartest business people at the time, So anyhow, we ended up, we never really opened the doors. I chickened out and stayed still at the company that I was at. And a couple of years later, I finally opened up, We Care in the year 2000. So it was a little bit of a adventure. Those guys, they're still my best friends, and to this day they still say I got the better deal when we split the company up and they bought me out. They gave me $100. So if that tells you anything, that's how great my sale was into the business. So anyway, so opened up We Care. Now we're in Southern California. We have two locations, one in the city of Marietta and Riverside County in the Inland Empire, and then we have another satellite branch that is in the city of Orange in Orange County. About 150, 175 employees. Summertime coming, so it does, obviously grow and continue to grow after that. So continuous growth, and looking to just be better and keep moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Lot to unpack there that I'm interested to learn a little bit more about. The one thing I want to touch on, because I talked to a number of people, I did not have this background of kind of being in the trade. I came from outside the trade. Obviously, my dad had started the company, so around it, but not a technically trained technician. What would you say was some of those key learnings when you transitioned from kind of technician in the field to business owner?
I went to a class called Operations Accountability. It was offered by one of the manufacturers. And I mean, they were talking about KPIs, benchmarks, and all this stuff. And I really didn't have a clue. I mean, I had no idea what they were talking about. And I mean, really, the big takeaway was meeting a gentleman in the class that introduced me to a guy named Frank Harrison from the General Heating and Air Conditioning out in the Palm Desert area. And the company where I came from, everything was like a big secret. And even though really not much really is a big secret, we couldn't talk to others. And, it was just very closed, but it was a great business. I mean, they were the largest in Southern California. Well, Frank Harrison was our third largest competitor back in the day. So I always heard the stories about him, but I never got to meet the guy. So then I, finally opened up my own and got to go meet him. And it was a totally different, opinion of him. I mean, he was just super outgoing, very positive about, whatever he is, 25 years older than me. But I mean, he was just so open to like, here's what those KPIs mean. Here's what this, here's job descriptions. Here's how you do a service replacement model. Because he was the third largest track company at one point, shut it down, and then opened up a service replacement model and got away completely new construction. And so he had all the stuff that he's already went through and was willing to share that. Now, the hardest part of all that is implementation of actually putting something in motion. But that's just really where we learned. I mean, we were wearing these really cool looking T-shirts with, like skulls on them and blood dripping off the skulls and everything else. And, we weren't into marketing. Guys are wearing sweats, hats on backwards, shorts and everything else. And I went out to his company and they're in full uniforms looking sharp. And I brought it back to ours. And we have this picture there's probably about 20 of us at the time, and showed them like, here we are. We were proud of that picture too when we took it. Like, this is our company. We got 20 people, some 10, 15 trucks, whatever it was. And then go out there and these guys are like 7 foot taller than us, with the uniforms on and looking sharp. So it's just an evolution, if you will, as we're going through this, is learning from others, how to be a successful, heating and air conditioning company. And a lot of pitfalls along the way too, where we think we know it all and you hit plateaus that we shouldn't have hit. We should have just kept growing on a consistent basis. But, anyway, I mean, so it was really learning from others is, I think, the key for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so critical. And we're sitting here on a podcast sharing what we know with others. So I think it's amazing the amount of resources that are out there today, and people like yourself who are willing to spend some time and chat, about the industry and, things that you've learned and things that didn't go so well, things that went great, all of that good stuff. So one of the things that I get, because we have multiple locations as well, what kind of preempted starting that second location, and then kind of go into kind of how you guys handle your satellite location, just to give people kind of an idea of what that model looks like?
I would say, we failed to plan, really. We really didn't do a really good job at it. We just opened it up because we were doing a lot of business. It's about a 45 minutes with no traffic. It could be as much as 2 hours with traffic to get to this place. So it was just more, we were doing work there since we opened the business, but we were growing more and more in that territory. And, we are a Costco business, that we do Costco work, meaning, and they gave us 3 stores out in that territory. So that's when we really okay, we could really need to open up another satellite location, handle our own business plus the Costco business. And that's really ultimately where we really started gaining the traction to do it. Everything, even to this day, is still primarily comes out of our main location. So the call center, accounting, install coordination, really everything is coming from the main location. The other one is more of a, we've got service manager there, warehouse manager, a handful of people that are really driving the business. And ultimately, really, we could do a better job at having more leadership out there, permanently sit in that place to really drive the business to do much better. And, from a recruiting aspect to retaining to just growing the business in general.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen something very similar. I think that, putting a location out there, it's kind of like putting your money where your mouth is. Like, hey, if we're going to really grow this area, hey, we're going to put some resources behind it. We're going to have somebody that's sole job is to focus on building this area. And I always told my team, I go, when we started, we had a similar one that we covered that area, but it wasn't a separate thing. So what I always saw was, well, the board's full today. well, yeah, it's full, but there's only 2 calls in that area that we're trying to grow. Whereas when you break it off and split it, like, no, 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 we have to have 8 calls on the board for them to operate. It kind of forces you to grow. I don't know if you saw any of that when you kind of set up that location.
Really, we didn't really plan enough to really see it. Like if I were to open a third location, then I could really see the differences and how important it is to have somebody that really, whether you call them an operations manager or general manager, to have that person in that position to know that like this is their business in a sense. It is a separate business from our core business. It is your location. It's just like any other, it's not a franchise, but just like any other franchise. I mean, McDonald's, you have a manager in there that has to run and drive that business. And it would be the same thing like going forward. So, I mean, that's ultimately what, we're looking for, is to get that person in that role that can handle the sales, the service managers, plumbing manager, all that type of stuff from that, and grow it just like we did at the main location. And, it's just a matter of, finding the right person. Really what it comes down to is looking for the right person. You gotta, take steps first, but we haven't really put a lot of effort into looking for that right person. We've just been driving it from the main location. So I'm going to, suggestion for anybody is, put that in place. When we went to that conference, last month, the one thing I would say is, Dave Geiger said it is hire for where you want to be, not where you are. And I think that really stuck with me in order to do that. And that's something we should have done. And we still can. I mean, it's not like it's too late, but put somebody in that position to really, even if you have to overpay to get that person to where you're going, as long as it's the right person, it will pay off. And that's ultimately what I would suggest, is hire the right person, have them run it like a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great piece of advice as it relates to a lot of things, but in particular, hire for where you want to be, and getting clear on what it is that you want to become. What do you guys do, or how do you go about kind of cascading the vision for where you want the company to be down to everybody in the organization?
Yeah, so we do a couple different things. As far as the planning part, we're a member of Nexstar. And we do a business planning workshop every year. We go out to Tucson and bring a handful of people with us, and then we go out there and plan. The one thing that's you're in those meetings and they sound great. We're gonna double our business next year. And you got to really scale it back to really look at what are we really going to do. Even though it's easy on paper to come in there and say we're going to do all this. So, I mean, that's probably our biggest thing, and we meet monthly on that thing. I mean, we meet daily, we do a daily huddle, and then we do a weekly managers meeting, and then an executive team managers once a week as well, and see how we're doing against the budget that we set. And, really, it's a very consistent meeting on where we're going, where we've been, both. So we look at the numbers and, we go through it and make sure we're on par.
Awesome. Yeah, the business planning workshop, obviously Nexstar members that are listening are familiar with that concept. Non-Nexstar members, essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rusty, or any details you'd like to add, but essentially it's a 3-day meeting where you basically go and with the help of a coach really lay out the entire next year. I think the most important thing that I've taken from there is, and you alluded to this at the beginning was as it related to KPIs and stuff like that, but this business is essentially a math equation that you can work backwards into. This is how many people I need. This is how many calls I need to run. This is the average ticket and conversion rate that I need. And I should be able to, and if I can do that every day, I should be able to get there, which was very insightful for me looking at the business. How am I going to grow this thing? Well, you grow it day by day, not in one fell swoop.
Absolutely. I mean, we also in the past have done, it's called MAP, Management Action Program, and it's a leadership development company, and we send managers there through that company and future leaders as well, and we did our business planning through them. The difference from them is it's not industry related, which can help also, because you're getting everybody's that's in business is dealing with the same problem, whether it's employees or customers or growth or whatever it is. And so you're getting different perspectives from different organizations. So they were, they've been a key part of our company as well to help grow, to follow, a business planning for the following year. You lay out a 5-year plan and down to 1 or 2 page business plan that you can follow easily every single month. It doesn't have to be Nexstar. There's plenty other, ACCA to EGIA. There's all sorts of organizations, Service Roundtable, that you can join and do those. I got caught up in doing too many of those, and you get so many different ideas, and it's hard to implement one thing and stick with it. So just chunk it down one goal at a time, and it is a math equation. And we see how much revenue we want to do, how many people is it going to take to do that, what is the call counts for that, what's the closing numbers to hit those numbers, so it goes on, and we, like I said, we go through that once a month to make sure we're hitting it to where we need to be, or what we have to do to correct it if we're not.
Yeah, if you don't mind, speak a little bit to this MAPS program. I heard I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Ken Goodrich was talking about sending his people through it, and he really kind of raved about how they utilize it and stuff. Tell me a little bit about that, because it's more leadership development, correct?
Correct. Yeah, so you're going to send your leaders through this program. It's a 3-day workshop. It's in, I know they're headquartered in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa area, but they got people from all over the place. Sparkless Water is where our leader came from. And he was, he's a great leader. He comes in once a month and does, facilitates a meeting for us to set goals for the following month. And we go over the last month's goals. But the workshop itself, the 3-day workshop, is, it's doing really following the DISC profile, to find out what the individual's personalities are. And then you're going through a class with, all sorts of different, a DIS or C people, and you're building a team in 3 days and getting close, and you do a case study where you're going to fix the company that's broken and come up with your ideas on how to address it and what you're going to do, the moves you're going to make. And then but basically through it, they're talking about your company, they're talking about, this fictitious company, and you're really learning from, each other that are in that group with you, because you don't take it with somebody else in your organization. There might be 3 workshops going on in 3 different rooms, but you're by yourself as far as the company you're representing. But then you're going into there to learn communication skills, leadership skills, whatever it is that you can about yourself, what you're working on. Your company's going to give you feedback on your strengths and weaknesses, basically doing a SWOT analysis on your company and on yourself, so that you can learn from that and grow. And then you just got someone else, facilitating it to help you understand, because it's not that you want to find out, well, who said that about me? It's more like, okay, what do I got to do to become better at that? And, maybe, or you're doing great in one area and continue to do so. So it's really a good 3-day workshop. I don't want to give too much away, because at the end it's somewhat of a surprise, which is, it's fun. And when someone goes through the workshop and you ask them at the end, how did you do? It's again, I don't want to go too far into it, because I'd suggest the people that really taking their leadership to the next level is to go through that workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great resource. I appreciate you sharing that as well. When it comes to developing leaders, obviously you've got this tool here. Tell me a little bit about kind of what you guys are doing. Obviously 175 people, you're going to have some layers of management and leadership, and you're going to have to bring people up. What do you guys do from that perspective of developing those leaders that are going to hopefully take the organization to the next level?
So, there's a couple different things that we're doing. One is, again, we're part of Nexstar. So in this world, everyone is assigned a coach that's in management, and they have it for, a sales management coach, a general manager coach, a call center coach. And they have to speak with this coach, once a month, but then we're also doing it in our managers meeting. My operations manager, he's been a great asset for us. He was a Nexstar coach for 6 years. So when he's, coaching in there, he can actually do the training. So that definitely helps as well. Even me in there, I participate as well, even if it's a service meeting. I'm just a student. I'm in there, to learn as we go. But so each coach is getting, each manager is getting a coach to give them their perspective on what has to happen in order for them to grow. And, it's those career paths that we want for the people, for what is it you want to be? Do you want to be an installer? Do you want to be, because we've had people, cross lines, in different areas. Our call center manager came from install, which is an odd, kind of move that way. Most of the time you're, going to be in that, you're going to stay on the installation, service, sales side, somewhere in that range. But he wanted it inside, and he was doing, call center rep, and then became a supervisor, and then now the call center manager. And then you've got other ones that are going to be a technician moving his way to a, possible senior selling technician. So we just want to make sure we're having the career paths, and that's the it's from the one-on-ones, weekly that you're having with your staff to find out where they're at, keep the retention level up as best we can. And, really from MAP, we also do Driven Leadership, which is another organization that is more, I'm not going to say it's like culture based, but it really is to keep the culture good. You go there and, they're going to, I don't want to say kick your butt because it's a really positive, uplifting experience. But in the beginning, day one, it's, it feels like a boot camp, but it's not. It's just day one is the rough night. But there you're learning communication skills, teamwork, and in a sense is helping each other, and they're going to stretch you. You're going to get comfortable with the uncomfortable as you're going forward. And they have different classes. That's again another 3-day. I guess we all settled on 3 days of training is enough. But anyway, when you're done out of there, you're on such a high that you want to change the world. Now that feeling goes away, after so long. It could be 2 weeks, a month, 6 months. But what keeps it going for us is when we continually send people. So we do a send-off party and then a welcome back party for this. How many times you ever go to a training or a conference or something like that, and you got a room full of people that are cheering you on, and we don't really tell you much of what you're doing. That it's this positive experience, but when they're headed there, they don't really know much. And then when the group's there for the send-off party, you get this crazy looking backpack and so forth. And when you're going, there's a series of cards inside of it. You're going to open at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like Hallmark type cards. And, there's just positive things in there, what's going to be happening or what just happened, how you feeling, how you doing type of stuff. And it's really building the character of the person. And, when they're going through it, you have to really rely on the team that's in that class with you in order to get through this thing. Cause it's pretty emotional, hard course that gets you through there. That's the bold course. And then they have outdoor courses where you're really doing teamwork, where you're, doing the ropes courses and climbing over a wall and truss walls and all that type of stuff like that too. But all of it is developing our team to be able to work together. You can go with other people in that class. We've done private classes where we just take the whole class and go with us. And, that's another part of that leadership development that we're using that for.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds, I think any time that we can, I've kind of like trained myself to do this, is like look for things like outside of industry, whereas that's not necessarily outside of it's business related, obviously. How do we really grow our people in those skills? I can train them how to work on an air conditioner, but like, how can I train them to communicate with people? How can I train them on these skills that can, expand an organization? I think is extremely, just so vital to growing our people and creating better versions of themselves. I think the one thing I always reflect on is how I've changed as a leader as the company has grown. How would you say you've changed as a leader over these last 22 years? Obviously there's different challenges at different levels, undeniable, but what would you say as far as maybe your leadership style, maybe something you've learned or something you've definitely changed and made it a point to like carry that on? How have you changed over as your company has grown?
Yeah, great question. I would say what I had to do was be more clear where we're going, what our objectives are, our vision, and all that type of stuff. Because when we started, we really didn't have a clue what we were doing. We just started as a new construction company as well. And we did that for about 9 years. And it was, going to that operations accountability class made a big difference, because when I didn't understand key performance indicators. I didn't know, where we were going or anything else. It's just like, go sell a job and, keep on working. And, so it was all mostly custom homes and so forth, but, we just kept growing that way. But it wasn't really clear. There was no defined, like, okay, here's our budget, here's where we're going. And then, fall in love with your numbers, because the numbers will give you the whole story, right back to those math issues again. Are we making money? Are we not making money? I mean, there's, years in our whole 22 years that, we were doing this as a hobby, and, you don't want it to be a hobby or a 501c3 company. We are a for-profit, of course. I mean, but I'm saying when you get down there and you're not really focusing on, I'm a guy that's really for the revenue. Like I love the sale, I love the kill and everything else. But if you're not watching the behind the scenes to see what's happening, you can easily get away from you. So as you grow, make sure you're following the numbers. You don't necessarily have to hit a plateau. You have to grow your people as the company grows as well. Otherwise, you're going to outgrow them and you're going to outgrow yourself as far as that goes. So it's continue learning. Don't be afraid to, not know the answer. Go find the answer. Go seek it. Because there's always somebody out there that has been there. If you're a $10 million company, go visit a $20 million company or $30 million company, whatever the size you are. 1 million, go visit a 5 million. If you want to grow. So I think that it's just being more clear as what I think where I had to get to in order to keep us on track and growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned the very same thing and have talked about it on here numerous times is, as leaders in the business, it can often find yourself accusing people of not understanding. Like, I just don't get why they don't get it. But oftentimes it's because we've never explained it or never laid it out there. It's just bouncing around in our head, and we see it clear as day because we wake up with the mission and all of this stuff. But, to bring somebody into the organization, explaining where you're going and how you think it's best to get there, and then getting their opinion on, what we should do to achieve our goals is just so critical. And it becomes even more critical the more people that you get, because that message can get distorted really quickly in a giant game of telephone, it seems sometimes. So you mentioned KPIs and different stuff like that. What I'm sure a business of your size is looking at all kinds of data. What have you guys done on this front? I know it's a huge initiative for us is to become even more data driven as we continue to grow. What are you guys doing on the data front that you may think is kind of unique or something that definitely if you're looking to grow a company you should be paying attention to?
I wouldn't really say we're doing anything unique. I think it's just really what we're doing is taking the industry average KPIs, if you will, and then doing the best we can to hit those numbers. Because if we're hitting those numbers, then you're going to be doing fine in business. So really it's just looking at the numbers. I think where you're going, like with data and artificial intelligence. We are on Service Titan. We were on Successware. And I think just getting that numbers, where you can actually see them and paying attention to those things and, doing whether it's weekly or monthly, make sure when your financials come out that you're going through them and where do we do well? Where do we not? And then breaking those things down. So I don't really have anything that's unique outside of just following the industry KPIs.
Yeah. And, simple answer, but I think that there's a lot of power sometimes in making this simple. I always tell people this is a pretty simple business. Use your KPIs, use what information is out there and coach to them. And then when you hit them, well, then, raise them up a little bit, see if you can't do a little bit better. So I think that's definitely something that all listeners can take away as it relates to, how to run an effective business, whether it's communication, using KPIs, and then, training your people up on all the skills they're going to need to be successful. What's something that you would share with the listeners that you feel like has been a key to your growth?
I mean, it's the people. I mean, hiring the right people is what's the key to the growth. I mean, that is our number one asset. Get the right people in place, and we have the expectations and standards and KPIs, and policies and procedures. I mean, it's that. It's just keeping our people in the, places in the places and, watch it grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is one of those things that everybody would agree with that, right? It's just a matter of really putting the effort behind finding those right people and making sure that you've created a culture that people want to be a part of and want to help grow. I think is critical as it relates to that. As we finish up here, obviously want to be respectful of your time and just can't thank you enough for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to share some of what's helped you guys. Hopefully it helps the listeners out there. But as we kind of wrap up here, what's that one thing kind of back in your early days of growing the company that you would let them know, or a lesson learned that you would share with them so that they can potentially avoid it and or utilize it to keep growing?
I mean, I think the biggest piece of advice that I got that I would share, it sounds so simple, and it's not, because there's more that goes into it. But the simple answer is sell it for more than it costs. And I mean, that simple little line sounds so easy to but you have to know your margin. You have to know your markup. What is your overhead and everything else that goes into that equation? So it's not just sell for more than it costs. Oh yeah, way to go. That's genius, Rusty. Yeah, thanks. But it truly is, because it goes so much further and deeper than just that simple explanation. Actually making an explanation is by knowing your numbers. I mean, you have to follow those. We've had in 22 years, we lost not business. We lost a profit we were negative in 1 year of that whole entire time, which we shouldn't have hit. We really shouldn't. So if you know your numbers, fall in love with your numbers. Again, I'm a revenue chasing guy. I'm not a profit guy. I'm not on the back end. I wasn't an accountant to begin with, but it's hiring that right person. If you're not an accountant, I've got a strong controller. So that person's that's their job, is to focus on that, to see that we're making money, we're priced right. What is our overhead? What's our break even? Knowing all those numbers, because this whole business is a math equation, and you can hit them by just following that simple process of sell for more than it costs.
I love it. Yeah, that's definitely easier said than done sometimes. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with just understanding the business is underlying all of the things that we do on a daily basis. There is a math equation there that will guide you to what you need to do. I think that sometimes we complicate it when business it's pretty simple. It's a simple thing that if we can wrap our arms around it, growth becomes inevitable, because it's easy to replicate something that we have fine-tuned and we're aware of and we're tracking and we know where we're at and we know where we're going. And to me, that's been kind of the theme of our conversation here, is just knowing where you're at currently, making sure that you're either priced right or you have the right people or whatever it is, and then casting that vision as to where you're going to go can be quite powerful. Well, Rusty, again, I cannot thank you enough for spending a little time with us. Enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure you've helped some people out there. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you again for having me. And one of the things that we've always said is things are going right. Here we grow instead of here we grow.
I like it. I like it. What a great way to end, and very appropriate for the podcast and the name. But as we wrap up, again, listeners, thanks for joining us. We're excited about continuing to bring really high level operators like Rusty and his crew out at WeCare onto the podcast. We'll have more for you here moving up. We have a great list of guests coming up, and just thank you all for tuning in and listening. Again, as we always say, I was reading this morning a quote and sent it out to the team by Maxwell. Growth is happiness. And when we grow, we find happiness. It is inevitable. So take every opportunity every day to learn and grow from each opportunity that is presented to you. Thanks again. Until next time, we'll see you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.